The emergency summit had been going on for 6 hours, and every minute that passed meant more lives lost to the inevitable. Ambassador and stood at the center of the Great Hall aboard Harmony Prime, his body trembling with frustration as yet another proposal was shot down by the coalition scientists. "The mathematics are clear," said the lead physicist, her silver scales catching the light as she gestured to the holographic display. "A rogue neutron star will collide with the system in 47 standard days. There are 4 billion on that world. They are an aquatic species with extremely specific biological requirements. We cannot evacuate them in time. We do not have the ships. We do not have the technology to keep them alive during transport. This is not a problem we can solve." The words hung in the air like a death sentence. Around the circular chamber, representatives from 12 spacefaring species sat in heavy silence. The I delegation clicked their mandibles nervously. The ambassador had closed all 4 of his eyes, unable to watch. Even High Counselor, the elderly leader who had seen 3 wars and countless crises, looked defeated. Commander Sam Carter sat with the small human delegation near the back of the chamber. He was a man of average height with gray streaks in his dark hair and calm brown eyes that never seemed to panic. Beside him, Lieutenant Kate Morgan was furiously running calculations on her portable terminal, her red hair falling across her face as she worked. "We've tried everything," and announced to the assembly. "Gravitational shields cannot protect against a neutron star. Planetary evacuation is impossible given the timeline and biological constraints. We have contacted every species with advanced technology. No one has a solution." A AI scientist stood up. "Perhaps we should focus on preserving their culture, their history. We can send recording teams to document their civilization before the end." Several delegates nodded sadly. It was the practical choice, the merciful choice. "So we give up," Kate Morgan muttered, not quite quietly enough. Anne's compound eyes turned toward the human delegation. "The young human speaks. Does she have something to contribute? Perhaps a miracle in her pocket?" Sam Carter placed a gentle hand on Kate's arm, silencing her before she could respond with anger. He looked at her terminal, then at the faces of his small team. Chief Engineer Danny Vance gave him a slight nod. Dr. Lisa Park's expression was serious but determined. Sam stood up slowly. The movement drew every eye in the chamber. "We have been listening," Sam said, his voice calm and measured. "We understand the problem. 4 billion lives, 47 days, a neutron star that cannot be stopped." "Then you understand there is no solution," and replied. Sam Carter looked around the room, meeting the eyes of every delegate. When he spoke again, his voice carried a quiet certainty that made even the most skeptical aliens pause. "Leave it to us." For a long moment, no one moved. Then it made a sound that might have been a laugh in his species. "Leave it to you. Commander Carter, this is not a human war or a human dispute. This is a cosmic event. Your species has been part of the galactic community for barely 2 centuries. What exactly do you propose to do?" "We are going to save them," Sam said simply. The chamber erupted. Delegates shouted over each other. Some laughed. Others looked at the humans with something between pity and concern. High Counselor raised her hand, and slowly the noise died down. She was old enough to have been present when humans first made contact with the coalition. She had watched this young species grow from primitive explorers to something else entirely. She did not laugh. "Commander Carter," she said, her voice like wind through ancient trees. "The coalition has great respect for human determination, but surely you understand what you are facing. This is not a battle you can win with courage alone." "We understand completely," Sam replied, "and we are asking you to trust us. Give us 47 days, let us try." "Try what?" Anne demanded. Sam glanced at Lisa Park, who stood and walked to the central display. With a few commands, she replaced the neutron star simulation with a different image. a complex web of gravitational lines surrounding a dense stellar object. "We are going to move the neutron star," Lisa said. The silence that followed was absolute. Then it made another sound, this one definitely a laugh. Others joined him. Even some of the more sympathetic species shook their heads. "Move a neutron star," and repeated. "A stellar remnant with the mass of 1.5 suns compressed into a sphere 20 kilometers wide. You are going to move it." "Yes," Lisa said. "Using synchronized gravitational manipulation. We have 847 ships capable of generating artificial gravity wells. If we position them correctly and coordinate their output precisely, we can create directional force sufficient to alter the star's trajectory." A scientist spoke up. The theory of gravitational manipulation was abandoned by advanced species ago. The power requirements are astronomical. The margin for error is zero. Any mistake would mean instant death for everyone involved. "We know," Sam said. "Then you know this is suicide," and said, his tone no longer mocking but genuinely confused. "Even if your theory is correct, which our scientists doubt, your crews would be placing themselves in extreme danger. For what? For a species you have never met, that do not even know your kind exists." Kate Morgan stood up beside her commander. 4 billion people are going to die if we do nothing. We are not going to do nothing." "But why?" and pressed. "This is not your responsibility. No one would blame humanity for accepting the inevitable. Your ships, your crews, your resources could be preserved for your own future. Why would you risk everything for strangers?" Sam Carter smiled, a tired but genuine expression. "Because we can. Because someone has to. Because looking up at the stars and doing nothing while billions die is not something we are willing to live with." The chamber fell quiet again, but this time the quality of the silence was different. High Counselor studied the human delegation for a long moment, then nodded slowly. "The coalition will not stop you," she said. "We will send observation vessels to document your attempt. But Commander Carter, I must ask you to understand what you are committing to. If you fail, your people will die for nothing." "If we fail," Sam replied, "we will die trying. That is not nothing." After the summit ended, and found High Counselor standing alone by a viewport, watching the stars. "They are delusional," and said. "You know this. The mathematics are against them. The physics are against them. They are going to fly 800 ships into the gravity well of a neutron star and die." Did not look away from the stars. "Perhaps," she said quietly, "but I have learned something in my long life, Ambassador. Never tell a human that something is impossible. They take it as a personal challenge." "You think they might succeed?" The old counselor finally turned to face him. "I think," she said, "that we are about to learn something important about our coalition members, something that might change how we see them forever." And clicked his mandibles in doubt. But somewhere deep in his ancient instincts, a small voice wondered if the human commander's calm certainty meant something more than foolish hope. In 47 days, they would all have their answer. The human fleet assembled in the dead space between star systems, far from any world that might be affected by what they were about to attempt. 847 vessels hung in perfect formation, their running lights blinking in the darkness like a constellation of determined souls. Commander Sam Carter stood on the bridge of the Endurance, watching the final ships take their positions. Beside him, Kate Morgan worked at her station, coordinating with engineering teams across the fleet. Behind them, a small group of alien observers stood in uncomfortable silence, trying to understand what they were witnessing. "Final ship in position," Kate reported. "All vessels confirm ready status. Gravity generators are charged and standing by." Sam nodded and opened a fleet-wide channel. "This is Commander Carter. In 12 hours we will begin our approach to the neutron star. Every one of you knows what we are attempting. Every one of you knows the risks. I am not going to pretend this will be easy or safe. Some of us may not come home." He paused, letting the weight of those words settle. "But 4 billion are counting on us, even though they do not know we exist. 4 billion people who want to see another sunrise, who want to watch their children grow, who want to live. We are the only ones who can give them that chance. So we are going to fly into the impossible and drag that neutron star off course with our bare hands if we have to." A ripple of acknowledgments came back across the channel. No fear, no hesitation, just quiet determination. Ambassador stood at the back of the bridge, his compound eyes fixed on the human commander. He had requested permission to observe from the lead vessel, convinced that watching the attempt fail up close would help his species understand the limits of human foolishness. Now, hearing the calm resolve in Sam Carter's voice and the identical resolve in 800 other voices, he was not so sure. Dr. Lisa Park approached the commander with a data tablet. "I have finished the final calculations. The neutron star is currently traveling at 3% of light speed. We need to alter its trajectory by 0.004 degrees to ensure it misses the system entirely." "And how much force does that require?" An asked, unable to help himself. Lisa turned to face the alien ambassador. "More than any species in the coalition has ever generated artificially. We will be creating gravitational wells equivalent to small moons and directing them with precision measured in centimeters. One mistake, one ship out of position by even a kilometer, and the whole formation could collapse. The gravity feedback would crush every vessel instantly." "Then how can you possibly succeed?" "By being very, very good at our jobs," Kate Morgan said without looking up from her console. Chief Engineer Danny Vance entered the bridge, his gray hair disheveled and his uniform stained with engine grease. He was a practical man who had spent 40 years in space, and his face showed every one of those years. "Generators are running hot but stable," Danny reported. "I have teams on every ship monitoring output levels. We have maybe a 15% margin before we start cooking the equipment." 15% is not much, Sam acknowledged. "It is what we have. I wish I could give you more, Commander, but physics is physics." Danny glanced at the alien observers. "Though I suppose we are about to rewrite a few pages of that book." The fleet began its approach 6 hours later. From the observation ships trailing behind at a safe distance, coalition scientists watched in disbelief as the human vessels formed a massive sphere around empty space, then began generating artificial gravity wells that bent the very fabric of reality. High Counselor observed from the coalition flagship, her ancient eyes fixed on the readings coming from the human fleet. The energy signatures were unlike anything in her long experience. Each human ship was producing gravitational forces that should have torn it apart, yet somehow they held together through precise engineering and constant adjustment. "They are actually doing it," whispered a scientist beside her. "They are creating a gravitational corridor, if they can maintain this formation as they approach the neutron star. They will be attempting to catch a bullet with their bare hands," finished, while standing in front of the firing squad. On the Endurance, Sam Carter watched the neutron star grow larger on the. Even from this distance, its presence warped the light of distant stars, creating a halo of distortion around a point of impossible density. "Distance to target, 2 million kilometers," Kate reported. "Gravitational stress on outer formation ships increasing." "All ships maintain position," Sam ordered. "Ben, how are we looking?" Captain Ben Torres, piloting the lead engineering vessel at the tip of the formation, responded with a tense voice. "Holding steady, Commander. My ship is shaking like a leaf in a hurricane, but we are holding." "That is all I ask, keep holding." The hours passed with agonizing slowness. The fleet crept closer to the neutron star, adjusting their gravity wells constantly to maintain the delicate balance required for the maneuver. On every ship, crews worked without rest, monitoring systems, making repairs, refusing to give up. and found himself holding his breath as he watched Kate Morgan coordinate the fleet. Her fingers flew across the console, making hundreds of micro-adjustments per minute, keeping 847 ships in perfect sync. The concentration on her face was absolute. "You are not afraid," and observed. Kate did not look up. "Of course I am afraid. Fear is normal. What matters is what you do despite the fear." "And what do humans do?" "We keep working, we keep fighting, we find a way or we make one." She finally glanced at him, a fierce light in her eyes. "Ambassador, my grandmother survived a hurricane when she was a child. My father was a firefighter who ran into burning buildings. My people have been facing impossible odds since we climbed down from the trees and decided to chase after animals 5 times our size. This is what we are. This is what we do." Danny Vance's voice crackled over the intercom. "Commander, we have a problem. The gravity feedback from the neutron star is higher than projected. We are going to need more power to push it off course." "How much more?" 20%, more than our generators are rated for." Sam closed his eyes for a brief moment. 20% beyond safe limits. That meant damaged equipment, possible failures, deaths. He opened his eyes and spoke clearly. "All ships, this is Commander Carter. We need to push beyond our limits. I am not ordering anyone to do this. If any vessel wishes to withdraw to safe distance, they may do so without shame. But I am asking you to give everything you have. For 4 billion strangers who will never know your names." The responses came back one by one, not a single ship. "We are with you, Commander. Let us do this. No retreat." Sam felt his chest tighten with pride. He turned to Kate, who was already adjusting the power distribution curves. "Take us to 120%, he ordered. The fleet pushed forward into the impossible, and the neutron star waited. The neutron star filled like an angry eye, its impossible mass warping space itself into twisted patterns of light and shadow. Commander Sam Carter gripped the armrest of his chair as the Endurance shuddered under the gravitational strain. "All ships report ready for Phase 1, Kate Morgan announced, her voice steady despite the sweat on her brow. "Gravity wells synchronized and stable." "Begin Phase 1, Sam ordered. Across the formation, 847 human vessels activated their gravity generators in perfect sequence. The effect was immediate and terrifying. Space itself seemed to groan as artificial gravitational forces pushed against the natural pull of the neutron star. On the observation vessel 2 million kilometers away, Coalition scientists watched their instruments with disbelief. The readings made no sense. Human ships were generating forces that should have been impossible for vessels their size, yet somehow they maintained perfect coordination. "They are actually pushing against it," a AI physicist whispered. "The neutron star is experiencing measurable resistance." High Counselor leaned forward, her ancient eyes fixed on the data streams. "Is it working? Is the star's course changing?" The physicist checked his calculations 3 times before answering. "Minimal effect. The course deviation is 0.0001 degrees. They need 0.004 degrees to save They are not even close." On the Endurance, Danny Vance delivered the same news with a grim expression. "Commander, we are not making enough progress. At current output, we will need 200 days to achieve the required trajectory change. We have 39 days. Sam felt the weight of 4 billion lives pressing down on him. "Options." "We increase power output," Kate said, "way beyond safety limits. Every ship pushes their generators to maximum and holds them there." "The equipment will fail," Danny warned. "Ships will lose containment on their gravity wells. When that happens, the feedback will crush them like tin cans." "Then we replace them in the formation," Kate replied, her voice hard. "Other ships compensate, we keep pushing." Sam looked at the neutron star on somewhere beyond that mass of dead stellar matter, 4 billion innocent beings waited for a death they did not know was coming. They had names and families and hopes and dreams. They had children who would never grow up. They had elders who would never see another peaceful sunset over their ocean world. "Do it," Sam said. "All ships increase to 140% output. Maintain formation at all costs." The fleet responded instantly. Across the formation, gravity generators screamed with strain as human engineers pushed them far beyond their design limits. Warning alarms filled every bridge, every engine room, every corridor, but no one backed down. Captain Ben Torres was the first to report trouble. "Commander, my primary generator is overheating. I have maybe 10 minutes before it fails completely." "Can you hold position for 10 minutes?" "I can hold position until this ship falls apart around me," Ben replied. "I am not the problem. The problem is what happens when I go down. There will be a hole in the formation. The Kelly and the will expand their wells to cover your position," Kate said, already making adjustments. "It will put additional strain on their systems, but we can maintain formation integrity." The next hour was a nightmare of cascading failures and desperate adaptations. One by one, ships began to suffer critical malfunctions. Gravity generators exploded. Power systems failed. Crews scrambled to evacuate damaged vessels before they were crushed by their own collapsing gravity wells. 3 ships were lost in the first wave. The and the simply ceased to exist, crumpled into twisted metal by forces beyond human comprehension. 73 people died in an instant, their sacrifice creating gaps in the formation that other ships rushed to fill. "Trajectory change now at 0.001 degrees, Lisa Park reported from her science station. "We are making progress." "Not fast enough," Sam muttered. He opened the fleet channel. "All ships, we need more power. I know you are already beyond your limits. I know you are watching your equipment fail, but I am asking you to push harder. Find reserves you did not know you had. Do the impossible." The responses came back strained but determined. "Generator at 160%. Hull integrity failing, but we are still here. Lost secondary power, running on emergency reserves, holding position. Crew evacuated to the stern. Forward sections are compromised. We are still pushing." Ambassador and stood frozen on the bridge of the Endurance, unable to believe what he was witnessing. All around him, humans were literally destroying their own ships to save a species they had never met. They were not retreating. They were not giving up. They were pushing harder. Blood dripped from Kate Morgan's nose as the gravitational stress took its toll on human bodies. She wiped it away without stopping her work. Danny Vance had burns on his hands from emergency repairs, but he kept calling out adjustments to the engineering teams. Sam Carter had not moved from his chair in 18 hours, his entire being focused on holding the fleet together through sheer will. 0.002 degrees, Lisa announced. "Halfway there." A cheer went up across the fleet, quickly silenced as another ship failed. The lost containment on its gravity well, and the resulting implosion took 2 nearby vessels with it. 112 more lives, gone in a heartbeat. "Close the gap," Sam ordered, his voice hoarse. "Redistribute the load, keep pushing." The remaining ships spread out, each one taking on more strain to compensate for their fallen brothers and sisters. The formation was thinner now, more fragile, but it held. Hours passed, more ships failed, more lives were lost, but the neutron star continued to shift degree by agonizing degree. High Counselor watched the casualty reports scroll across her screen and felt tears running down her scaled cheeks. In all her centuries, she had never seen such willing sacrifice. The humans were not fighting an enemy. They were not defending their homes. They were dying for strangers, and they were doing it without hesitation. 0.003 degrees, Lisa reported, her voice cracking with exhaustion and emotion. "We are almost there." But then Danny Vance's voice cut through the momentary hope. "Commander, we have a problem. The calculations were off. Gravitational interference from a nearby system is affecting the neutron star's trajectory. We need more deflection than originally projected." Sam felt his heart sink. How much more? 0.005 degrees total. We are 0.002 short of what we need. The fleet had already lost 43 ships. Equipment was failing across the formation. The remaining vessels were held together by emergency repairs and desperate prayers. There was nothing left to give. Except there was. "We can do it," Kate said quietly, looking at her commander with eyes full of determination and sorrow. "If the lead vessels push to 200%, we can generate enough force, but they will not survive the attempt." Sam closed his eyes. The lead vessels, Ben Torres and his crew, the people at the tip of the formation who had been taking the worst of the strain since the beginning. He opened the channel to Ben's ship. "Ben, you heard the numbers." "I heard them, Commander." Ben's voice was calm, almost peaceful. "I have already talked to my crew. We are not leaving." "Ben." "Sir, 4 billion people. That is what this is about. My crew is 17 souls. We have already agreed. We are staying." Similar reports came from the other lead vessels. Crews refusing to evacuate. Engineers strapping themselves to their stations. Pilots keeping steady hands on controls they knew would be their last. Sam Carter bowed his head for a moment, overwhelmed by the courage of the people he commanded. Then he looked up, straightened his shoulders, and gave the order that would save a world. "All lead vessels, take it to 200%, and may whatever gods exist watch over you." The final push began. Captain Ben Torres watched his instruments climb past every red line ever drawn by human engineers. The ship around him groaned and screamed, metal twisting under forces it was never designed to endure. Through the neutron star loomed like the eye of an angry god, and Ben stared right back at it without flinching. "Generator output at 190%, his engineer reported, voice tight with fear. "Hull stress exceeding maximum tolerance. We have maybe 5 minutes before structural failure." "Then we have 5 minutes to finish the job," Ben replied. He opened the channel to the fleet. "All lead vessels, this is Torres, push harder, everything you have. Do not stop until that star moves." 7 ships at the tip of the formation pushed their generators past 200%. The effect was immediate and catastrophic. Space around the lead vessels twisted into impossible shapes as artificial gravity wells reached power levels that physics. Lights flickered. Consoles exploded. Crew members were thrown against walls as the ships bucked and heaved. On the Endurance, Commander Sam Carter watched the readouts with a clenched jaw. The lead vessels were dying, and there was nothing he could do to save them. All he could do was bear witness to their sacrifice. "Trajectory change at 0.004 degrees, Lisa Park announced. 0.004.5, 0.004.8, we are almost there." "Hold formation," Sam ordered, his voice barely above a whisper. "Hold." Kate Morgan's hands flew across her console, making adjustments that kept the rest of the fleet in sync with the dying lead vessels. Tears streamed down her face, but she did not stop working. She would not stop until it was over. The first lead vessel to fail was the Hawkins. Its gravity generator exploded with a flash of impossible light, and the feedback crushed the ship into a sphere of twisted metal no larger than a car. 41 souls, gone in less than a second. The remaining lead vessels pushed harder, compensating for the loss. Their generators were melting. Their hulls were cracking. Their crews were bleeding from ears and noses as the gravitational stress tore at their bodies. But they did not stop. Ambassador and fell to his knees on the bridge of the Endurance, overwhelmed by what he was witnessing. These humans were dying. They were in agony. They could retreat at any moment and save themselves. But they kept pushing, kept fighting, kept sacrificing everything for a species they had never met. "Why?" and whispered, looking up at Sam Carter. "Why are they doing this?" Sam did not take his eyes off because it is who we are. The second lead vessel failed. Then the third. The Cole, the Reeves, and the Foster disappeared in rapid succession, each one adding its final measure of force to the impossible task. 127 more lives offered up on the altar of compassion. 004.95 degrees, Lisa reported, her voice breaking. "We are so close. We just need a little more." Ben Torres looked at the 4 remaining lead vessels on his display. His ship was falling apart around him. His crew was injured and exhausted. They had given everything they had, and it still was not enough. But there was one thing left to give. "Disengage safety protocols," Ben ordered. "Override all limiters. Take the generator to maximum possible output." His engineer stared at him. "Captain, that will cause immediate containment failure. The gravity well will collapse inward. We will be crushed before we can evacuate." "I know," Ben smiled, a peaceful expression on a face that had accepted what was coming. "Do it anyway." The other lead vessels followed his example. 4 ships pushed their generators past every limit ever conceived, creating gravitational forces that warped reality itself. The neutron star shuddered under the assault, its ancient trajectory finally, impossibly, beginning to change. 005 degrees, Lisa shouted. "Target deviation achieved. The system is clear. Repeat, the system is clear." A ragged cheer erupted across the fleet, but it was cut short by the sight of the lead vessels finally giving way. Ben Torres and his crew were the last to go. In his final moment, Ben opened a channel to the Endurance. "Commander," he said, his voice calm as his ship collapsed around him, "tell we said hello." Then he was gone. 7 lead vessels destroyed. 243 human lives lost in the final push. The price of saving 4 billion strangers. Sam Carter sat in silence as the remaining fleet slowly pulled back from the neutron star. Around him, the bridge crew wept openly. Kate Morgan had collapsed over her console, shoulders shaking with sobs. Danny Vance stood frozen, unable to process the magnitude of what they had done and what it had cost. The neutron star continued on its new trajectory, carrying no record of the sacrifice that had changed its course. In 39 days, it would pass harmlessly by the system, close enough to create spectacular aurora displays, but too far to cause any damage. 4 billion would wake up that day, completely unaware that they had been saved. They would go about their lives, raise their children, grow old and die in peace, never knowing the names of the humans who had given everything for them. High Counselor stood on the bridge of the Coalition observation ship, watching the human fleet limp away from the neutron star. Many of the ships were badly damaged. All of them had lost friends and colleagues, but they had done it. They had achieved the impossible. She opened a channel to Commander Carter. "Commander, on behalf of the Galactic Coalition, I want to express our deepest gratitude and our profound respect. What your people have done today is beyond anything we have ever witnessed." Sam's response was quiet, exhausted, grief-stricken. "Thank you, Counselor, but I would rather have my people back." "Of course," paused, struggling to find words adequate to the moment. "They will be remembered. We will make sure of that." They did not do it to be remembered. They did it because it was the right thing to do. The channel closed, and Sam Carter finally allowed himself to feel the weight of what had happened. 243 of his people were dead. Brave men and women who had flown into the impossible and never come back. He would carry their names for the rest of his life. Kate Morgan appeared at his side, her face red and swollen from crying. "Commander, the communication network has detected unusual stellar activity. They are starting to notice that something strange happened in their outer system." "They will never know the full truth," Sam said. "Their civilization does not have the technology to understand what we did." Does it matter if they know? Sam shook his head slowly. It matters that they live, that is enough. The battered human fleet began its long journey home, leaving behind the ghosts of 243 heroes and a species that would never understand how close they had come to extinction. In the silence of space, the neutron star continued on its new path, a monument to human stubbornness, human compassion, and human sacrifice. On one of the damaged vessels, a young ensign who had lost 3 friends in the final push looked out the viewport at the distant system. A blue-green world orbited a yellow sun, beautiful and peaceful and completely unaware. "They are alive," she whispered. "They are all alive." And somehow, despite everything, that was enough to make the tears stop and the grief become bearable. They had lost so much, but they had saved so many more. The stars had witnessed something extraordinary that day. Humanity had shown the galaxy what "leave it to us" really meant. 3 days after the miracle, the Great Hall of Harmony Prime was filled with representatives from every species in the Galactic Coalition. The mood was somber but tinged with something deeper, something that had changed the way every alien in the room looked at the small human delegation seated in the center of the chamber. Commander Sam Carter sat with the survivors of his fleet, his uniform bearing a black band around his left arm in honor of the dead. Kate Morgan sat beside him, her eyes still red from days of grieving. Danny Vance had refused to change out of his stained work clothes, saying he wanted to honor the engineers who had died keeping the ships running. High Counselor rose to address the assembly. Her ancient voice carried through the silent hall. "We have gathered today to honor those who gave their lives in the service of compassion. 243 human beings flew into the heart of impossibility and did not return. They did this not for glory, not for payment, not even for species they had ever met. They did it because lives were at stake, and they could not stand by and do nothing." She paused, letting the weight of her words settle over the assembly. "In my many centuries, I have seen wars fought for territory. I have seen alliances formed for mutual benefit. I have seen sacrifices made to protect one's own kind. But I have never seen what I witnessed 3 days ago. I have never seen a species give so much for strangers." Ambassador and stood unexpectedly. The diplomat who had mocked the humans just weeks ago now looked at them with something approaching reverence. "I owe the human delegation an apology," and said, "When Commander Carter said 'leave it to us,' I believed he was speaking from arrogance or ignorance. I believed humans simply did not understand the scale of what they were facing. I was wrong. They understood completely. They knew the cost and they paid it willingly." He turned to face Sam Carter directly. "Commander, I have served the Coalition for 80 years. I have met hundreds of species. I thought I understood the galaxy, but your people have shown me something I never expected to see. You have shown me that the universe contains not just intelligence but genuine goodness. I am humbled." Sam rose slowly, feeling every hour of exhaustion in his bones. "Ambassador, we did not do this to humble anyone. We did it because 4 billion people were going to die. That was unacceptable to us." "But why?" and pressed gently. "They are not your allies. They are not your trading partners. They did not even know you existed. Many species in this room would have calculated the cost and decided it was too high. Why did humanity not make that calculation?" Kate Morgan answered before Sam could. "We did make the calculation. We looked at 4 billion innocent lives on one side and the risk to our fleet on the other, and the answer was obvious. No calculation was needed." "But your people died." "Yes." Kate's voice was steady despite the tears threatening to return. "And their deaths meant something. They died so that children could grow up. They died so that families could stay together. They died so that an entire civilization could continue to exist and dream and hope. If that is not worth dying for, then nothing is." A sound came from the back of the chamber, a low keening that no one had heard before. It took a moment for the delegates to realize it was coming from the communication systems. "What is that?" someone asked. High Counselor checked her terminal and her eyes widened. "It is a message from the... They have detected the course change of the neutron star. They understand that something impossible happened. They do not know who saved them or how, but they know they were saved." She adjusted the speakers and the keening became clearer. It was not random sound. It was music. Complex, layered, hauntingly beautiful music that seemed to carry every emotion a sentient being could feel. "It is a song," said softly. "They are a musical species. This is their response to being spared. They are singing to the universe, thanking whoever answered their unspoken prayers." The song filled the great hall of Harmony Prime for nearly an hour. Every delegate sat in silence, listening to the gratitude of 4 billion beings who would never know the names of their saviors. By the time the song ended, there was not a dry eye in the chamber, regardless of species. When the last notes faded, High Counselor spoke again. "The Coalition has a motion to consider. I am proposing that humanity be granted the status of honored protectors, a position that has not been awarded in 6,000 years. It comes with no special powers or privileges. It is simply our way of acknowledging that the human species has proven itself to be something remarkable, something worthy of respect." The vote was called. It was unanimous. After the formal proceedings ended, Sam Carter found himself standing by a viewport, looking out at the stars. Danny Vance joined him, carrying 2 cups of coffee. "You look like you could use this," Danny said, handing over a cup. "I could use a time machine," Sam replied. "I would go back and find a way to save them all." "You saved 4 billion. I lost 243. Danny nodded slowly. "Ben Torres told me something once, years ago. He said the weight of command is not about the victories. It is about carrying the dead with you and still finding the strength to keep going." Ben was a wise man. He was a good friend. Danny took a sip of his coffee. "And he would be angry if he saw you standing here blaming yourself. He knew what he was doing. They all did. They chose to stay." Kate Morgan appeared at Sam's other side. "Commander, you have a private message from the..." Somehow, one of their scientists figured out enough of what happened to piece together a response meant for whoever saved them. She handed him a data tablet. On the screen was a simple message, translated from the musical language into human words. "We do not know who you are. We do not know how you saved us. We only know that we should not be alive, and yet we are. Our children will grow up because of you. Our elders will die in peace because of you. Our species will continue to dream because of you. We have no way to repay this gift. All we can offer is this promise. We will spend the rest of our existence trying to be worthy of your sacrifice. We will teach our children to be kind. We will look to the stars with gratitude forever. Thank you. Thank you, thank you." Sam read the message 3 times. Then he lowered the tablet and looked out at the distant stars, imagining the blue-green world where 4 billion were beginning their lives again. "That is why," he said quietly, "that is why we do it." Kate put her hand on his shoulder. "Commander, do you want to say a few words at the memorial service tomorrow? The families of the fallen will be there. They want to hear from you." Sam thought about the 243 names burned into his memory. He thought about Ben Torres smiling in his final moment. He thought about the young engineers who had chosen to stay at their posts. He thought about the meaning of the words, "Leave it to us." "I will speak," he said. "I will tell them that their loved ones did not die for nothing. They died for the most important thing in the universe. They died for hope." The stars continued to shine outside the viewport, each one a reminder that the universe was vast and cold and full of danger. But somewhere in that universe, 4 billion beings were alive because humanity had refused to accept the impossible. And that made all the difference. The galaxy had learned something that day. When humans say, "Leave it to us," it is not a boast or a promise or a prayer. It is a statement of identity. It is a declaration that as long as there are humans in the universe, no one has to face the darkness alone. The neutron star continued on its new path, carrying with it the legacy of 243 heroes who had proven that compassion is the strongest force in the universe. And on a distant ocean world, a child looked up at the unfamiliar stars and wondered what other wonders the universe might hold. They would never know that a human named Ben Torres had died, so they could ask that question. But the universe knew, and that was enough.